Well, guys, welcome back to another week of Donald Trump's presidency, another week of Democrats pearl clutching in the most annoying way possible, and another week of just general BS here in the United States of America. I want my job to be a couple of things. Number one, I want to be able to point to you what you should actually be concerned about, what you should actually care about, and what is just noise and nonsense. But I also really want to teach you how to understand the larger moment we're living in terms of, but I also want to teach you how to think and how to understand what politicians are doing and saying, not just as a voter, but as someone on the inside who understands ball, who understands why they're doing what they're doing in the way that they're doing it. So you can kind of see the bigger picture here of what it is they want to accomplish. The thing that I really want you to understand is the difference between real communication and rage bait, because there's a big difference. And the way that Republicans have been so successful in getting out of their base and talking to people on the periphery is by using rage bait to kind of catapult themselves in the algorithms. And I want to start by something that's just so nonsensical because it's happening here in Texas. So obviously I'm going to pay attention to it, especially because it's kind of like in my backyard. But also it serves as a perfect example of someone who is rage baiting, someone who doesn't actually have moral convictions or actually want to do some kind of political thing, but it's just a circus. Okay, that's all it is. So we're going to talk about this later. Valentina Gomez is a Republican, like MAGA Republican, super far right lady who is a grifter in every sense of the word. And I truly mean that. In my opinion, she is the most griftiest grifter in the Republican Party right now. Outside of Trump and his people, she's right up there with them, okay? Valentina Gomez is a Colombian-born immigrant who came to the United States in 2009, where she settled in New Jersey. This woman is from New Jersey. She went to Central Connecticut State University, and then she went on to go to Tulane to get her MBA. So this is a very educated woman. In 2024, this is when she really burst on the scene. She ran for Secretary of State in the state of Missouri. And the reason why she garnered so much popularity online is because she posted some of the most out there, insane, homophobic, racist, violent things of any candidate I have ever seen. She was waving around a blowtorch. She was burning books. She was simulating executions of immigrants. Okay, this woman is out of her mind. And it worked. She was getting millions and millions of views and impressions of her content on Twitter especially. But what we saw there is that it didn't translate to electoral success, because when the election actually happened, the Republican primary for Secretary of State, she only got 7.4% of the vote. She came in 6th place out of 8 candidates. She decided she was going to move to Texas to try to primary Republican congressional member Dan Crenshaw, who used to be my representative before redistricting. I don't know how this woman keeps getting access to sensitive places, but she continues to film these videos in more and more outrageous places. She filmed one in Mike Johnson's office. She filmed one of these videos for her social media page in the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Then she recently filmed a video on the floor of the Texas legislature. That's a very sensitive area for people to be going into, especially for people to be going in and filming with their cell phones. How this kind of got back onto my radar is over this past weekend, she filmed a video inside the Moody Center at the University of Texas. And if you know anything about Texas, the University of Texas and A&M are like sacred, especially when it comes to sports. So how I got wind of this from this past weekend is I saw a bunch of Republicans who I know, including a Republican state legislature, kind of calling her out, being like, what the hell are you doing? First of all, they were making fun of her for filming a video on the floor of the Texas House, because that's not where you're going to be working. Those are for state house members. And I'm not 100% sure if she knows the difference or not, but we'll see. So I said, this woman looks like she puts beans in her chili. And if you don't understand that, which I'm sure she doesn't, because she responded to me and said something like, you should put more vegetables in your chili, you're not a Texan. And she's not a Texan. The woman's from New Jersey. And the fact that she couldn't clock that insult means she shouldn't be running for office here. This woman doesn't actually want to be in office. She doesn't. And my guess here is, and this is allegedly a guess here, she is making a significant amount of money off of social media. So she claims that she has been demonetized on Twitter from their views, because you can get paid for getting views on Twitter. She claims she's been demonetized from that, but she has tips and subscriptions on, which means people can subscribe to her page, which is I think $5 a month, and they can also send her money. When she was running for Secretary of State, Missouri, she only raised, I think, about $25,000, and then she spent all of it. That's why she's doing this. She's getting a lot of views. She's making money from Twitter. If she's not doing like some kind of consulting work where people are paying her for amplification. I don't know if that's the case. Could be the case. She can't file to run for office in Texas yet. You can't file to be on the primary ballot until November, the year before the general election you're running to be in. So she's going to file, if she does, in November of this year. She'll be filing to be on the primary ballot against Dan Crenshaw. This is going to be really interesting for all of us, and it's going to tell us a lot about what her intentions actually are, because when you are a federal candidate and you're running to be in the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate, you have to file a PFD, a personal financial disclosure. If you raise over $5,000, or if you meet the requirements to be on the ballot. You can either pay to get on the ballot, or you can get signatures to get on the ballot. So if she's actually seriously going to primary Dan Crenshaw, and she qualifies, she's going to have to file this PFD. That includes any income you have over $5,000, your assets, your investments, and your liabilities. So we're going to know come November, December, January, a lot more about her financial status than we would have known from when she was running for Secretary of State in Missouri. The other thing is, Dan Crenshaw might be unpopular to Republicans in this kind of MAGA sphere, right? He's very popular in his district. The reason why is because he raises so much money. Dan Crenshaw pumps money into Texas Republican politics. He gives money to his county party. I think it's Montgomery County. He gives money to congressional candidates running in other districts. He was cutting $10,000 checks out to people who are running, fundraising and spending it. The man is invested in the Republican Party in ways that a lot of members in both the Republican and the Democratic Party are just not doing. Dan Crenshaw is doing that. So not only is he popular because he spends a lot of money, but his district is like it's not a moderate area. It's like a suburban-y, it's like upper middle class Republican voters. Upper middle class Republican voters tend to usually be kind of college educated. They have a couple kids. They're in the PTA. They're football moms. And I would argue that even they would look at Valentina Gomez and be like, oh my God. So if she actually runs, she might crack 20%. Might crack 30%. I don't know how much money she's going to raise. I don't know how much money she has. She's going to lose. But the reason I say all this is she's a really clear example of what it means to do things for the sake of for engagement and not for the sake of actually wanting to make a political difference. And that's why Republicans have been able to spread their messages so much farther, is because they have people who are doing things for the sake of engagement and not just for the sake of informing. And we as Democrats have got to condition ourselves into doing that. We have to condition ourselves into doing things for engagement that still stick to the core principles that we have. Because our most successful messengers do that. AOC does that. Jasmine does that. They engage. They're confrontational in a good way. And that's why their messages and stuff are getting out there. And so more Democrats got to start doing that, because that's the way down the line we're going to end up winning elections, is by continuing to do that. Valentina is basically Jill Stein for Republicans. Okay, when she loses this race against Dan Crenshaw, no idea where she's going to go after this. Frankly, I don't really care. Another thing happening in Texas that's relevant to the entire nation is we have an outbreak of the measles. In West Texas. In Gaines County, there are 45 confirmed cases of the measles. 13 people, mostly unvaccinated children, have been hospitalized. The cause? Take a guess. Yeah, the cause is people not being vaccinated. Shocker. Bill Cassidy, a Republican senator from Louisiana, who is a doctor. He is a doctor. He posted a graphic that was basically saying, there's a measles outbreak in Texas. The measles vaccine is safe and effective. You should take it. Great. Good job, Bill Cassidy. The problem with that, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, is that he's the chair of the HELP committee in the U.S. Senate, the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, who chaired that committee where RFK Jr. had to go through a committee hearing in order to be confirmed as Secretary of Health and Human Services. Bill Cassidy questioned him very clearly about his vaccine stances because, like I said before, Bill Cassidy is a doctor. Not just a doctor, he's a doctor from the South, all right? He understands the severity of these moments. This is just part of the line of questioning from when RFK Jr. was answering questions in that hearing in front of this committee.
Because I used to do hepatitis B, as I've said. I know the data's there.
Well, then I will be the first person. If you show me data, I will be the first person to assure the American people that they need to take those vaccines.
Now, what concerns me is that you've cast doubt on some of these vaccines recently. I mean, like the last few years, but the data, and I can quote some of it. The data has been there for a long time.
It would be really easy for me to just say, well, all Republicans in Congress are completely devoid of emotion or passion or concern for people. I don't think that's true. I think that they do care about people. I think that they just care about themselves more. And I think that Bill Cassidy is a really clear example of this because you can see in his line of questioning that he is genuinely concerned. He is concerned about the vaccines. He is concerned about RFK Jr.'s past. He's concerned about his history. And yet, even with that concern and passion, he still voted to confirm him. And his vote in particular is extremely bad for two reasons. Number one, like I said before, he is a doctor who has seen health crises firsthand, especially in a state like Louisiana. Number two, he's the chairman of the HELP committee. So by him giving his stamp of approval to RFK after getting a couple of empty promises about looking at vaccine data or whatever, him giving his seal of approval gives every other Republican cover to vote to confirm RFK Jr. And that's how we find ourselves in this circumstance where Mitch McConnell, a childhood polio survivor who is very likely about to retire if he gets to that point, because very clearly his health is not in the best place, Mitch McConnell was the lone no vote against confirming RFK Jr. That's now, when something like this happens now, it's going to be on RFK Jr. And when something like this happens now, it's going to be on you too, Bill Cassidy. This is going right up there with Susan Collins being like, oh, I'm deeply concerned about Brett Kavanaugh's comments. I'm deeply concerned about Brett Kavanaugh's behavior. Oh, but I'm still gonna vote to confirm him because I don't think that he's gonna overturn Roe v. Wade. I don't think that they're gonna do that. He pinky promised he wouldn't do it. Well, guess what they did? Oh, RFK Jr. pinky promised he wasn't gonna go after vaccines. Oh, did he pinky promise? Both of you are failures. Except the difference between you and Susan Collins is Susan Collins is just a failure as a senator. You're a failure as a doctor and a senator because you failed to upkeep both of the oaths that you took. You're not protecting your constituents from enemies, foreign and domestic, and you're not protecting patients because you're being a doctor who's actually helping aid someone who has little to no medical experience whatsoever to be in charge of the health care of all of the, 330 million Americans living in the United States? Give me a break. But what would we expect? Would we expect anything less from Republicans who are in the party that's dictated by Donald Trump? I don't. I certainly don't. Another glaring example of it this week is Tom Homan, the border czar, effectively threatening to throw AOC in jail for doing a training with her congressional office to inform people on their constitutional rights as it relates to interactions with immigration and immigration officials and ICE. She did a webinar where she told people about their constitutional rights. This is not the first back and forth that Tom Homan and AOC have had. I'm going to play a very brief clip of one they've had in the past from, I believe this was a committee hearing where he was involved. I don't know if he was confirmed. Just watch the video.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their...
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father from his
Mr. Homan, with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're in the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
I wanted to show this clip because I think it really shows the crux of what the Trump administration's argument is for why they're being so tough on immigrants. Their argument is that you coming into the country is an act of crime. It's a crime. That's particularly concerning when you look at like the Laken-Riley Act that was passed, which, by the way, if you're a Democrat and you voted for that bill, major side-eye to you, because the principle of cracking down on immigration, that's one thing. Voting for that bill that had that language text, which denies due process to people based on their immigration status, is a constitutional crisis. And I do not say that lightly. Which I'm going to come back to that in a second. So Tom Homan saying this makes it clear what the Trump administration's perception of immigration and people coming into the United States actually is. The other problem with that is they're saying, well, you should come here legally. Come through a port of entry. Come through asylum. Da-da-da-da-da-da. That's great. What they're not telling you is the Trump administration canceled asylum appointments that people legally scheduled, canceled asylum appointments, and got rid of at least 20 immigration judges, despite the fact that we have a caseload, a backlog of over 3 million immigration cases. So in the midst of all of this, AOC, through her congressional office, hosted a webinar explaining people's legal rights to them. So Tom Homan goes on a Fox News tour, basically kind of being like, oh, I don't know, this might be obstruction. This might be aiding a criminal, da-da-da. And he's going around saying this and being like, well, we might launch an investigation with the Department of Justice and the AOC because she's helping criminals, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly the question I posed to the Deputy Attorney General. I asked him to look into it. I says, I know through my career, someone steps in front of you, in between you and the person you're arresting or repeating. Yeah, that's a violation. But at what point do you cross the line on saying you're educating people versus you're teaching them how to evade ICE arrest? So I've asked that question to the Department of Justice.
Okay, this argument coming from Republicans is so stupid to me, and it genuinely makes my head hurt because it is such a basic constitutional principle that your rights and criminal statutes are not based on your citizenship. It's based off of jurisdiction. So when you come into the United States, even if you are here illegally, even if you are undocumented, the Constitution still applies to you, which is why I had that issue with Democrats who voted for the Laken-Riley Act. If I drive across the border into New Mexico and I beat someone up, I'm not going to be tried for assault in Texas. I'm going to be tried in New Mexico. So the jurisdiction argument here is so basic. I'm not shocked, but I'm like, are we serious right now about arguing about the constitutionality of this? But it's the sheer audacity to say that you are willing to open an investigation to arrest one of the most popular and platformed elected officials in the country. And that's why he did it. That's why they did it. They're trying to springboard off of her to rile their base up. This is meat and potatoes for the Fox News audience. And that's why he was going on Fox News and saying all these things. They want people who are watching to be like, you know what? Hell yeah. Throw AOC in jail. She's a traitor. Da, da, da. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're saying this. They want to get a reaction out of their base. They got to throw them a bone every once in a while to distract them from the fact that all these things that Trump said he wants to do are getting blocked up in court. It's the same reason why they campaigned attacking Kamala Harris for a number of different things, talking about how Trump was, it was a witch hunt, it was political persecution, because look at the Trump administration record from his first term. Did he repeal the Affordable Care Act? Did he build the wall? No. Did Mexico pay for it? No. All these promises he made to his base, he did not fulfill them. So they gotta spin up some other stuff to get them riled up so that they don't eventually rub those two brain cells together to say, hey, wait a minute, he didn't do any of the things we wanted him to do. Oh, that's so crazy. I wonder why. Because legally, he's gonna get sent to court. He's not gonna have the votes to do it because Republicans can't govern. We're probably gonna, either we're gonna go into a government shutdown soon, or Democrats are gonna have to bail it out once again. Me personally, team, shut it down. Make them work their shit out and stop saving them. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House. Make them govern. Make them stand by what they're doing. Don't save them. Give the people what they voted for. This is what they wanted. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get a second Trump administration where they can't get anything done because they can't agree. And they're all stupid. So whatever. AOC responded exactly how she should have. And she mocked him. She was like, read the Constitution. And she belittled him and dismissed him which was the exact right thing to do. Honestly, if I was AOC, I probably would have gone a step further. I would be like, look here, you're an administration official. You know my committee schedule. You know what building my office is in and what number it is. Come arrest me. When you're ready, you let me know. I will be there waiting for you to pull on the handcuffs. I would call their bluff. You're gonna arrest me? Then do it. Because here's the thing that I learned watching Tom Homan do these interviews. The man speaks with no conviction and no bravery. He sounds like a moron. He sounds like he has no backbone in the things that he's saying. And this is my problem with so many of the Republicans who talk about these things, is they have no conviction. They have no talent. They have no skill. They have no charisma, which is why they have to rely on fear. It's because they don't have the skill to rely on their own talent. So they have to leech off of extremely talented people who do have the ability to command that attention. Because when they talk about themselves, nobody listens. So they have to talk about people who people want to talk about, which is why they're talking about AOC. So I would just call his bluff. I'd be like, look at this dork over here talking about, you're gonna arrest me. Come arrest me then. But I think she handled this great. I think more Democrats should have this kind of energy. And I think we'll continue to see that from AOC, as she's continuously proven. She's a leader. She gets it. She knows ball. So we'll see what happens. But this is ultimately what Republicans do, right? They try to scare us on purpose so we don't pay attention, right? So they have two tactics here, which is why they're doing these things. Three tactics here, okay? The first one is they want to distract you from something else they're doing. That's the first one. We all kind of understand that one. It's a distraction. That's kind of the one that Democrats always fault in. They'll be like, oh, they're talking about mass deportations because they don't want you to talk about egg prices. Oh, they're talking about, abortion because they want you to talk about tax cuts, right? That's kind of the one we default to. That's not always the case. There's that, the distraction. There's two, springboard outrage, which is where they try to capitalize off the rage of Democrats, off the rage of informed people, to springboard out to people on that outer periphery who are otherwise kind of unengaged with politics. They're counting on getting to that larger moment to get their message out there. All right, they're counting on the haters to bring in the views and publicity. Very effective strategy, worked for Trump during the entire campaign. The third reason they do this, they are trying to get us to the boy who cried wolf for them. And what I mean by this is, Democrats, we have got to stop clutching our pearls anytime they say something remotely scary. Trump tweeted something crazy about, being above the law. Democrats took it and ran with it and were like, oh my God, he's saying the quiet part out loud. He's doing this, he's doing that, da-da-da-da. Then the White House accounts posted his mugshot, and it was like, if they're coming after him, they're coming after you. Another round of Democrats being like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this. What they're doing, I want you to be cognizant of this, okay? Hear me when I say, if you hear anything else I say in this video, hear this specific thing. They want us to freak out about everything, so we become the boy who cries wolf for the people on the periphery. We keep setting ourselves up in this trap over and over and over again, where we tell people he's going to do XYZ thing, and then they desensitize the larger audience with all of these little pricks, just these little pricks over and over and over again, until it gets to the point where people aren't listening anymore. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to use you to exhaust people. They're trying to use your concern and your empathy and your compassion to get other people to stop paying attention. And the reason why they're doing that is because if it's only us Democrats, if it's just us, ballpark 50% of the country, if it's just us opposing something they're doing or mobilizing or whatever, nah. But if it's us and that 20-30% of people who are otherwise completely unengaged, who maybe sometimes vote or maybe don't vote at all, if those people start paying attention and getting involved too, now it's a real problem. Because if it's just the base, then it doesn't matter. But if it's general constituency, that's a problem for the White House. That's a PR disaster. There's gonna be points in this presidency where those kinds of things happen. But if we boy who cried wolf every tweet, every Instagram post, then when that point gets here, people aren't gonna wanna listen to us. So we just have to be mindful of the things that we are reacting to in outrage, okay? Just be mindful of that going forward. That is the end of the news that I'm going to talk about in today's video. I'm going to try to do these video posts on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We'll see if I stick to that. Probably, maybe. Other thing that I do is on Fridays, I do a written Substack called Ask and Act, which is where I pull questions from my social media feed from my followers and I answer them. This past Friday, I talked about the SAVE Act, which is a voter ID law that Republicans in the House have posted. I talked about the effectiveness of marching. I talked about what Democrats are giving me hope. So I answer probably like 5 to 6 questions every Friday. I give you action items of what you can do to better America, how you can get involved, tips, tricks, a little bit of good news, a little bit of criticism. So if that's something that interests you, leave a comment down below. For Friday's edition, it's going to come out Friday morning at 8 a.m. I schedule it every morning. That's CST. To become a paid subscriber, it's like $6 a month. A founding membership for a year is $60. You're helping me pay my rent, pay my tuition, feed my dog, and feed myself. So consider becoming a paid subscriber because it really does help. I also think I'm going to start sending a paid subscriber only version of Ask and Act Friday that's a little bit more personal and a little bit more in depth than the typical Ask and Act Friday. I tried to keep those really succinct, so this one will be a little bit longer if you're interested in that. I hope you guys enjoy this format. I'm kind of dealing with this new. It's new to me, so if there's something you don't like, there's something you do like, let me know. Enjoy the small pleasures in life because we're going to be in it for a long 4 years. And thank you for tuning in and watching.